So, welcome to The Stage Door. This is a series partnered with the Graham Academy and The Stage Door in Corner Brook, Newfoundland. And this time we get to broadcast from New York. We're here, well, we're still in Newfoundland, but our guests are in New York. They are Catherine Cox and David Evans. So, welcome to the show, Catherine and David.
Thank you. It's so nice to be here.
Well, we're so fortunate to have you, and thank you so much for offering some of your time to talk to the kids and share some of your knowledge in this business.
Absolutely. Our pleasure.
So I always love starting these interviews with one of my favorite questions, and I'll ask you one at a time. So Catherine, I'll go with you first. What was the moment for you that you looked at, for you it's acting as a career, and said, this is something I want to do for the rest of my life?
I wish I had that moment, but
Still waiting.
I'm still waiting. No. I really don't know it. As something I think sent me here because everyone said, well, I did musicals in high school. My mom was a singer, but more of a classical singer. My father was a minister, so he was dramatic, because he was always up in the pulpit and he, spoke. So, I mean, I had that background. I didn't have many, albums. No one knows what those are, but, cast recordings of original people. I mean, I think I had 3 cast recordings. South Pacific, believe it or not, it was The Apple Tree, and I think like Sound of Music. Okay, so I had those 3. I just listened to them over and over and over. But even though we lived all over, so my father was a missionary, so we went to Guyana, in South America for a while. So I wasn't your typical theater nerd, geek, which now I am, but I wasn't then. I decided after college, I had got a music degree in education. I was in a school where my parents could pay. We got free tuition because my father was a Lutheran minister and it was a Lutheran school and they had a good music department, which was great, but they didn't put on musicals. So after that, I just decided, you know what? I don't know why. I really don't know why. I just decided I'm going to go to New York, and I wasn't fearful of New York for some reason, but I'm going to go to New York and just give it a shot. And that was it. And if it doesn't work, I have so many more options. I loved directing choirs. I was fine with it. I wasn't obsessed like a lot of people were. I'm sorry. I should have said it differently, but that's the truth.
No, I think that's wonderful. We see the variety. Sometimes I think it's great that we don't know how we got where we got in this, that there's no big eureka moment for everyone. I think sometimes it's just the drive that pulls us in without any one specific time. So that's lovely to share.
And I really think that the fact that I didn't have a whole lot of background in what everyone did, and we don't have what we have now. You had to buy the cast album. That when I came to audition, I was really pure. I didn't have any preconceived ideas of how to sing a song or how to behave, and so I think I was kind of fresh off the boat. And that had an appeal when I was young. It wouldn't be that appealing at my age now, but it was appealing when I was young.
Well, I think it's quite interesting you mentioned that, because we had Katrina Bromley on a couple weeks ago from Come From Away, and she auditioned with a Newfoundland folk song after listening to all the people belt out musical theater in the room before her, and went in and she got it. So you never know what people want to see, I guess. It's good to keep that in mind.
It is good to keep in mind.
And so, David, for you, your path has led to a lot of different, routes. Whether you're associate conducting or writing your own work or scoring as well. So, did you have a what if moment, or was it similar that you just kind of found yourself here and started doing it?
A little different. Well, my parents were interested in theater, so when I was a kid, I always went to see a lot of shows. But then once I got to college, I was mostly doing classical music. I was composing, pianists, conducting. I was in the whole classical world. And I went to Harvard. I was a music major at Harvard. And in Boston, there was an improv theater group called The Next Move and The Proposition, kind of like Second City in Chicago. If any of these guys watched Whose Line Is It Anyway, that kind of improv. And I love them. I went to see them all the time. So I was a kind of a closet theater fan, but I was very involved in the whole classical world. And they were advertising for a musical director there. And I thought, how much fun would that be? I mean, God, I couldn't imagine just doing that and improvising songs and stuff like that. But I just couldn't do it. I couldn't see how to mesh that with the classical world. So I remember cutting out that ad and putting it on my desk at Harvard. And I would look at it every once in a while, and I just didn't have the guts to call. And I think about 2 years later, I said, what the heck, I'm just gonna call. And they still needed somebody, ironically. And so I went and I got the job. So by night, I was improvising kind of pop songs and country music and whatever they needed. And by day, I was working on my master's in piano at New England Conservatory. And I went to Brandeis. I ended up with all these degrees in classical music. And then in the early 80s, they started a musical theater writing program at NYU. And it was the first in the country. And a friend of mine saw an ad about it. I applied. I moved back I had grown up in New York, by the way.
Suburbs.
In the suburbs of New York. So I got into this program. There were only 12 of us in this program. And through the program, I got to meet Stephen Sondheim, Betty Comden and Adolph Green, Julie Stein, Arthur Lawrence, Leonard Bernstein, of all people. I suddenly was in this world of musical theater and studying with the legends. And I started to write. I wrote a musical that was done off Broadway in the 80s that Arthur Lawrence, the writer of West Side Story and Gypsy, directed. He became kind of a mentor figure. And it just went from there. So I think the aha moment, if there was one, came when I thought, you mean I can do this and call it work? And I kind of veered from the classical world, which I was getting a little disenchanted with, into this theater world where when I started working at that improv theater company, I said, oh, these are my people. These are people who all love what I love. So that was kind of the moment where I thought, oh, I could actually do this as a career. So that for me is sort of how it happened.
Well, it shows. I love the variety of paths that we all take to kind of end up doing something that we can ask that question and really kind of genuinely reflect back and answer it. I think it's a wonderful thing. So kind of just building on your relative performance or writing careers, Catherine, you were Tony nominated for O Coward, which is, the works of Noel Coward, which is very different than a lot of theater that we see now. So what was it like to be in that show and kind of dive back to that different style of performing with it?
Well, yeah, you're right. Noel Coward is very esoteric and not like I'm just a girl who can't say no, you know. So it was interesting, but I have to say, I got Tony nominated for that. But I think, if I could say it, I think that I think it was for the bulk of my work up to there, because that was such a small show. And I should have been older doing that part. I think I was too young to do that part, but they cast me anyway. And I think I did really well. But I think that I got it for other things. That's just my thought. I did dig back and I worked with them, but you know, singing Mad About the Boy when I was 28 or however old I was, you know, it that's something that requires, it's like singing Here's to the Ladies Who Lunch. Everybody laugh. You know, I could do that now, but I shouldn't have done it when I was 30 or 28.
We were at the Tony Awards. This is just an anecdote. And she totally had no expectation of winning. Actually, the person who won was Marianne Plunkett, who was sitting right behind us, and who I knew well because we'd worked together in Boston. And when they announce the winner or they announce the nominees, their cameraman is kind of running up the aisle and showing the faces like that. And he stopped right in front of Catherine. And kind of we went, oh, geez, Jesus.
Because I hadn't written a speech, so I was a little bit
and
nervous.
We thought, wait a minute, is this going to happen? Of course, all you had to do was thank me, so it wasn't a big speech.
Yeah.
But anyway, and I think Marianne was either right in front of us or right behind us. They were going for her. So anyway, just a little anecdote.
Yeah.
Not disappointing.
I guess you never know the frenetic energy that goes on at the Tonys.
Oh,
just
nutty.
Oh,
nutty.
It's crazy.
And I was at the, well, I don't have to tell the story.
Yeah.
Anyway, go on.
Stories are always welcome.
Well, you know, we've been around for so long. We've got lots of stories.
We've got lots of stories.
Go, let's, lead the procession.
So Catherine, another question is about, you originated the mother of the main character in Footloose. So what was it like to step into that show that, already had a movie that kind of everyone knew the movie Footloose, and it was not an immediate, here's the movie, here's the musical adaptation, as we're still seeing now with shows like Beetlejuice coming to Broadway, with quite a lot of time since the movie came out. So what was it like to change the portrayal of that character to your version?
Well, it's funny. I played the character who, what was his name, played in the movie? We went to preschool with her. Oh, Shelley. No, it doesn't matter. Anyway, she, in the musical, my part had a bigger part than her part in the movie. I didn't feel any kind of like competition necessarily. I really loved working with it. I had young kids, so it was really nice to get out of the house. Sorry. It was really nice to get out of the house every once in a while and be with teenagers who thought I was cool. And I had a really good time doing it. And the audiences loved it. The critics were so nasty to it. And, but we still ran for 2 years because people liked it. And the funny part about the critics were that it seems like everything that followed and they had to like do another review, they'd say, this is bad, but it's not as bad as Footloose. And you would go, seriously? Come on, you can't do this. It's like, that should be like not. We had a great time. the company had a great time, the audience had a great time, and so, you know, I didn't worry about the film as opposed to, I actually had a bigger part in the musical, so I had a good time.
Absolutely. And I think, you know, what's it about? You know, if you have an audience that is so supportive of the show and that the cast is loving each other and loving the show, hey.
If they stand up and go, yeah, I'm there. You know, I'm just what the critics say. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, it must have been very interesting to be in that show and have all those very, you know, it was. I do remember, you know, seeing those when you look up the show, because I did Mama Says for many years, starting with in my first little kind of a jukebox musical that took borrowed from a bunch of shows, and Mama Says was my number in that. So it was a great fun one, and yeah, the show that's the critical response is a very interesting section to read in that article.
A lot of critics didn't have a good time in high school. That's all I can say.
Well, there we are. So David, the next question I have is for you about a show that's quite interesting. You know, it's about children's letters to God.
Yeah.
You know, I think it's a beautiful idea for a show that, you know, talks about these children and what they're wanting, and yet the show itself, beyond the title, doesn't really focus on religion. So, what was it like to adapt that material and create a show out of it?
You know, what happened was there's a man named Stuart Hample who's no longer with us, but he had done the book. He had gone to schools and interviewed kids. And it didn't necessarily have to be religious kids. They said, if you were to write a letter to God, what would it be? And it became a very popular book. Little book, you know, with fun drawings. And it just became a huge seller all around the country for years and years and years. And Stuart got in touch with me and said, I've always dreamed of making this into a show. Would you like to work on it? And I said, sure. And so I brought along a lyricist, Doug Cohn, who I worked with, and we just set about trying to make an entertaining musical using the letters as sort of a jumping off point for little things about kids and things about growing up and issues like there's a death of a pet and there's a divorce and just different issues. So we didn't really set the letters. We used the letters. Kids say the letters sometimes in the show, and then
jump off.
And then they jump off of it into songs that we wrote. And it was wonderful. We loved the show. It ran for about 9 months. Ironically, I was just opening Wicked at the same time that show was opening too. So I went from the $13 million musical to the like $1.50 musical down the street. And we were actually in they were kind of in rehearsal at the same time. So that was a wild thing to be happening. And ironically, one of the families that we're working with that we mentioned in Newfoundland, who they have a 13-year-old and a 9-year-old, they fell in love with the show, and they are rehearsing right now with us a little just in their family version of that show, which they're probably going to be putting together over the next couple of weeks. And I just got in touch with the original cast, who are now, of course, in their 20s and 30s. And we're going to do a version of the last song in the show called I Know, which we're going to do as people are doing these Zoom presentations of things. We're going to do a Zoom version of it. So it's been it's a show that's been on my mind a little bit lately after all these years.
Fabulous. I think that's so, it is a very universal idea, you know, where you're taking these honest letters and making something, you know. I think it's a beautiful, timeless idea in a lot of ways, and timely for right now. You know, we're all asking those questions.
Yeah, it's true.
So I guess the next step is, of course, to talk about Wicked, which David, you've been with quite some time, and we actually have a question from one of our students, Max, who asks about the first time you saw the set for Wicked. It is quite one to see, and I'll build on that one by kind of asking what's it like to journey with that show from such an early point to where we are now.
Well, I actually the first time I saw the set, we were rehearsing the orchestra for the first time upstairs in the theater. And we were on a break, and it's a gigantic theater. It seats almost 2,000 people. And I remember wandering over because they were doing tech rehearsals the same time we were rehearsing the orchestra. And I happened to wander into the room, into the audience when they were teching Defying Gravity. And the standby, the Elphaba standby, who ended up playing the part eventually, was up in the air. And I don't want to ruin the illusion for anyone. She can't really fly for real. So they were rigging her up the way they do, and she was just up there hanging while they were fixing the lighting and stuff like that. And I kind of thought, wow, this is an epic. This is, because I had not seen any, because Winnie Holzman, who wrote the book of Wicked, happened to be an old friend of mine because we were both in that NYU writing program, and we had written together then. So I had gone to see a reading of the show way before this, like a year before. And it was just the first act, but I had an idea of what the show was and what it was about. But really the first time I heard the whole score was in the other room when we were rehearsing the orchestra. But when I walked in and saw that, I thought, wow, this is a big thing. No idea how it was going to go. No idea, as with any of these things, whether it's going to be huge or whether it's going to come and go in 2 weeks. And I have done plenty of shows that came and go in a very short period of time. So, and even after we opened, I have to say, the reviews were not great. They weren't Footloose reviews, but they weren't,
That was nasty.
Yeah.
That was a nasty thing you just said.
I'm sorry, but we were just talking about it, so I sort of was building on that. We didn't know, even after opening, whether the show was going to last at all. And here we are almost 17 years later, hard to believe. We, of course, are not doing the show right now. And who knows, we have no idea when it will be coming back. We, the last show we did was, I think, on March 11th. We had a 2-show day on a Wednesday. And then Thursday we had a meeting in the theater, and we were told that we were going to not be performing that night and at least for another 3-4 weeks. And now it's like 2 months later, I believe. So nobody knows what's going to happen. I'm assuming that if anything comes back to Broadway, at least Wicked will be, but we have no idea. We're guessing that Broadway is going to be one of the last things to come back, considering the fact that, it's a lot of people in a very small space, and it depends a lot on tourism and a lot of things. So, we're just biding our time. But it's been quite a ride. I mean, 16 years doing the show. I conduct the show a lot. When I'm not conducting the show, I'm playing in the band and doing rehearsals, and it's been a great job. And all my good friends are there now. So hopefully we'll be back, but we don't know when.
Absolutely. It is such a strange time. I was watching a local presentation from Theatre St. John's, and Heather Bambrick came on. She's a jazz vocalist from Newfoundland, and said, theater artists were the first to be affected and the last to come back out of it. And
Yeah.
it was like, ooh, yeah, that is, it was so quick to shut down, and it will take quite some time to even to convince people to spend time in a room with 1,000 other people, it's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know how that's going to happen. I mean, I'm assuming it will eventually.
Mhm.
But
But
there'll be a lot of shows that just have to close.
yeah,
They can't. I don't know if the landlords are going to keep, asking the producers to pay their rent or whatever. I don't know what. But I mean, I heard there was even Evan Hansen, which was a big, hit. We're not even sure that's coming back. I mean,
Yeah.
we're hearing like rumors, from and if that doesn't happen, there's so many things that could close,
Yeah.
We're doing, it's, can I advertise just for a
Oh,
little bit?
absolutely.
Okay. Um, we're have a website. It's BTT for Broadway Triple Threat Coach, coach.com. And you can do lessons. And we've been doing lessons with Lily, and we've been doing lessons with the Walshes who live in. And Anna Barrett was the one who's been spreading the word up there. And we're giving them the money. Well, we were giving all of the money to the COVID-19 Broadway Cares Emergency Fund. So now, we're taking a little bit just for our expenses, but it's really a cheap rate. You get to work with us and we have fun with you, because what are we doing? We're working on other things, but it's so nice to, if people want to work with us, it'd be fun. It'd be great. We'll make it a good time.
Absolutely. Yeah, I was going to mention that at some point in this anyway, but I think it is just wonderful. And anyone we've had 3 people who were on Broadway, 2 including you folks, Romano, Danilo from Come From Away, and Petrina from Come From Away, and they both sang praises about Broadway Cares. And of course Romano had a lot of experience with Wicked, touring with the national tour.
Oh, it's all right.
On percussion. So yeah, so it
Wow.
was
Yeah.
lots of connections with all of this. And
Yeah.
we're so fortunate to have you connected to Newfoundland with and Andrea have told me about the wonderful work that you guys do for a good few years now. So it's been something on our radar.
Broadway Triple Threat Company about 10 years ago,
Yeah.
doing a summer program every summer. And now we're focusing mostly on, well, we were until all this happened, on sort of sponsoring school groups and theater groups to come to New York, and we help them. We do classes, we help them get tickets to shows.
We do workshops, we bring in stars to talk to them. When it all bubbles back up again.
Yeah.
I'm enthusiastic that it will bubble back up again.
Yeah.
We have to be.
Yeah.
Have to be positive.
Yeah, absolutely. And looking at Broadway Triple Threat, you've had not only your own experience that you help these students with, but you've had people like Alex Brightman, Kelly O'Hara, Lin-Manuel Miranda has come in and done workshops with your students, some of the biggest names of Broadway. So what's it like to make those connections and get everyone in a room together to spread this learning in this wonderful program?
Well,
it's fabulous, but what everyone doesn't know about New York is that the musical theater world is like a small community in a big, huge community. So somehow it's like 6 degrees of separation that, you kind of go, I know someone who knows someone who knows someone, and you can find these people.
Oh, yeah.
And they're so giving. They're mostly, I mean, I haven't met anyone who isn't really.
No, they're fantastic.
They just want to nourish the love of musical theater and the love of learning how to do it and to do it well. I'm not just saying that. They really are.
Yeah.
Like Lin-Manuel Miranda, I mean, we know him, but it's like 6 degrees of separation. It's not like we have him over for dinner.
Right.
you know, but he came and he did a incredible thing with us. And it was so you can get to these people because it's a small village in a big city.
And you know what? The Wicked, of course, for all these years helps because so many of these people have been through Wicked. Alex Brightman was in Wicked as a Bach, so I knew him well from that. Lynn, before Hamilton, and even before In the Heights, was a fan and had worked really closely with Alex Lacamoire, who was actually one of the keyboard players at Wicked with us.
So it's,
So
you know,
Lynn used to come backstage, used to come work with Alex when they were conceiving In the Heights, and so it was not hard to call him and say, "Would you be willing to come for an hour and work with these kids?" You know, so all of those people, you
they're
know,
generous.
are very generous, and if we don't know them, a good friend of ours does. So it wasn't hard. It was never hard to get people to come.
Mhm. And I think that says so much about the community of artists everywhere, that we are all just so willing. And you guys are an example of that by, you know, not only doing these lessons and donating so much of the proceeds, but also coming on with us at the Graham Academy here in Corner Brook to do this lovely little interview and Q&A. It's really wonderful.
Well, we are the next trip when we start taking trips again is definitely to Newfoundland because we've always wanted to go there, and now that we know all of you people,
All these people.
we're there next time. As soon as we can
And
travel.
I think the Barretts said that they had a little house that we could stay in.
Yes. So we're counting on that. We're counting on that.
Well, there we go. And Newfoundlanders are giving as well. So we really double up on the opening our doors and giving people, I'm sure.
That's what we heard from Come Away.
Come from away, yeah.
Come From Away, we were in love with you guys
Yeah.
from that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm sure our Graham Academy mom, Michelle, will make you dinner and everything and bring it over. So we're all set for guests once this all opens up again.
Good.
So of course we talked about, you know, what drew you into the arts, but what then sparked you to work with young people in the arts?
Oh, wow. Wow. Well, I think that when I had kids, I didn't want to travel as much. And so I kind of thought, how can I make this work? Because lots of times when you get a show, you have to travel. So for me, I started teaching a little bit and I went, oh, I really like this. I mean, it was very funny. I was watching, was it a documentary on Sondheim? Where Sondheim said that he finally taught and he went, I really like this. And I really liked spreading the joy and also taking people from, if they didn't have confidence, to someone who would have confidence. There were so many other things. But so I guess that's my answer.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you've been working professionally, but he's written a lot of shows for kids.
Yeah, I worked for a company called TheaterWorks USA, and they
A long time ago,
they commissioned hour-long kids musicals for kids, and I wrote 9 of them for them, and they toured all over the country, and they were with young adult casts. They weren't children, but they were for kids. And so I as well got into the whole idea of theater for kids. And the truth is, I mean, Catherine has worked now for many, many years teaching young people. And it's very satisfying, especially, as she said, when someone who loves the idea of doing this, but doesn't have confidence and doesn't have, is scared about it. And, the bottom line is that we're all scared about it. As a matter of fact, Catherine, I'm going to get personal. When I first saw her, we've been married for 32, 33 years. But when I first saw her, it was in a show called Baby that she was in. That was fantastic, and she was amazing in it. And I saw it several times for some reason. And I just thought she was the most confident person I could ever imagine, because just seeing her on stage, she was so funny and her singing was so great. And she was just sort of, just the epitome of the professional, consummate professional. And then I was doing a show of mine, and she came, that I had written, and she came to audition for it. And I do remember when she came in and she was holding the script, she was shaking.
I'm just shaking my.
And I thought, what the heck? I mean, who? That, first of all, that's when I fell in love with her. But also, I thought, wow, even someone like that could be like nervous about auditioning, and it made me realize that it's hard for everybody, and if you can, teach someone how to audition or how to perform with confidence, doesn't mean that they're not nervous inside, but it just means that, they've learned how to present themselves in such a way that, that presents themselves as someone who enjoys performing. Because, no one likes auditioning. I mean, very rarely. I mean, you have to be.
There are some people, and I really,
yeah.
I wish I were that person.
Yeah, but most people find that very nerve-wracking, because you're not being judged just your it feels very personal. It feels like you're being judged as your whole person is being judged.
And that's what you have to learn.
Yeah.
That's what you have to beat into your head before you get into this business.
Yeah.
That it's not personal.
Yeah.
And you could have done better. Maybe it's not that you shouldn't take the fault. You could have done better, maybe, but just figure it out and be factual. What did I do wrong? Well, I shook my papers. What can I do? They knew I think I was doing well, but for some reason. And you know what I did next time? I put a piece of cardboard right underneath the paper, and it was fine.
Yeah, but you
I was
wouldn't have
speaking very, very calmly.
Yeah.
But I was scared. I was scared.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's everybody has their own journey with that, but that's at least what we try to do when we teach, is try to help people find their confidence. And if you've got the talent, it's just a process of figuring that out.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, and being a theater teacher here, it certainly is amazing to see those breakthrough moments, that when a kid has that breakthrough, oh, that, and you can see them realize they had it as they have it. It's amazing. And it's a wonderful, wonderful thing. And to see young people shine and be able to shine is a beautiful thing.
Do you know,
I was just thinking about Jordan.
Do you know Jordan Peele?
Do you know who he is?
I know, yeah.
He's half of the comedy duo Key and Peele.
Yeah.
And now he's on to being a really famous movie director, and he's huge. Well.
And they're very funny. I mean, and he's very, yeah.
Yeah. Well, when he was 11 or 12 years old, I had written a show for a theater company, kids theater company called Ta-Da in New York. And he was one of the kids. And the show was called The Gift of Winter, and he had to play Winter, this sort of mythical figure. And he was just this little shy kid. And he was great in it. And his mother came up to us and afterwards and said that, I can't thank you enough. He's the shyest kid. And he just found his confidence and, all that. And now, of course, he's famous. Do I hear from him? Does he call? Does he write? Yeah. Jordan, where are you?
He's like a Jewish mother right now.
I'm a Jewish mother right now. Jordan. But anyway.
You don't write, you don't call.
Yeah.
But
Anyway.
you know, in this Gift of Winter, the play that he wrote, which is really, it's a beautiful, the last number makes me cry. But Jordan had to be winter, and he had to be a big kind of guy, and he went, ugh. And the Gift of Winter was snow. It was like the whole premise of the show is before you had snow, you know, and he went, and he laughed till he cried, and then snow came out. And he had to be this, I mean, he had to be a bigger than life character, this little shy guy. And I do remember his mother came up and even came up to me after, you know, and said, I can't believe this has just turned my son's life around. You know, he's not shy. He's a guy who made snow. It was really sweet. It was very sweet.
You guys should look up Key and Peele, because if you Google them, their sketches are on YouTube all over the place, and they're hilarious.
Can you spell?
Key, K-E-Y, and Peele, P-E-E-L-E. They were on for like 5 or 6 years, and
They might be a little for the kids. I don't know.
oh, they're fine. Anything that is on YouTube is fine.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Anyway, they were great.
That's what
anyway,
he says.
That was Jordan.
But that's the kind of thing I love. I love that about teaching. I still love to perform. I just don't like to audition. So that, you know, that kind of hurts. So it's okay.
So now we'll open it up to some of the kids. I have a couple questions, so I'll find them and unmute them as we go. So the first one is from one of our oldest students, Violet. There we go.
Hi. I was just wondering, what's the best way to reach out to people and make connections?
Okay. This is about probably auditioning. I mean, if you want to reach out to people, it's not really as personal as that if you don't have the first connection. You have us now. But usually you go through BroadwayWorld.com, or you go through Playbill or Actors Equity. They seem to be the biggest thing, just to read about where the auditions are. Okay? And where the auditions are.
Is that what you mean by making connections? By how to audition for things, or how to find out what people are
Yeah,
looking?
sort of just how to like get in the loop.
Okay, so look up BroadwayWorld.com /theater /auditions. All right, and also look at Playbill and Actors Equity. Even if you're not, do you know what about Actors Equity?
I've heard of it.
Or an Actors Equity is a union that you have to, you know, get into, or you don't have to, but they also post non-equity, non-union jobs. So, and right now, currently, it used to be with musical theater stuff. Are you mostly interested in musical theater?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Musical theater stuff used to be live. Right now, of course, it's currently online. So I have information because my son's girlfriend is very into what's happening right now as far as auditioning, and I got a lot of stuff here.
You know, we can send him.
Yes, we can send you all this
Yeah,
information.
we'll forward you all this information at the end. We can send you some links to some of that stuff.
But you've got to have a good headshot, good resume, and now it seems to be, if you have a reel, that's good. Now, do you have to have a reel that's professional? Well, you know, you can't if you're not professional. But you can do just things that you have, that you know, maybe you work with your friends and you work on a scene and you can make a reel. And so that's all good. like I said, mostly musical theater auditions are in person, but now they're not.
Yeah.
It's a new set of things, but they'll tell you if you go on to Broadway World. I don't know if much is going to be auditioning, but they might be auditioning for things
For the
in
future. Yeah.
Louisville or in the future, or for a reading. You know, even if they want to do a reading, readings are good.
And
Equity or non-equity.
they're starting to do some of that during this period. They're starting to
Yeah.
do some of that online. So take a look at those sites. And Ian, at the end of this, or when we're done, we'll email you a little thing about where all of these sites are and what all this stuff is.
Yeah, and most of your kids are, or most of your students are into musical theater, right? Or are they also into film? You have to-
Musical theater is the main one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, if you come, I mean, at this point, you got to come. You got to be open to everything.
Yeah.
You know. So look at the film stuff. Look at student films that don't pay anything. That you're the right age because you're 12. You know, and they can't find somebody who's 12. You know, or whatever. Look at all of that stuff and keep those little things and put them on a reel, because people need reels now, and they need, you know, especially for film, TV, and that's, you know, you can no longer just be musical theater. It's just like you can no longer be an actor and a singer. When I came to Broadway, if you could sing and act, oh my God, yoo-hoo, right? But now you got to dance, sing, and act, or at least you have to move well. Okay. So anyone who's into really singing and acting, take those dance classes. Okay.
Mhm. Thank you.
Excellent. All right. Thank you so much for that. You know, and it is something, you know, the shows change, and I think everything changes so rapidly. So it's great to give that advice out. The next question we have is coming from Lily Cunning. All right, Lily.
Hi.
Hi, Lily.
So my question,
I see you.
hi. My question for you today is, how do you get ready for showtime? Like, how do you get ready? Like, what's your circle or routine?
Okay. Everyone will have something different, right? I do a vocal thing, which is, well, first of all, I breathe. Breathing is very good, always good. But I mean, it's breathing to get in touch with, you know, your diaphragm. So I really do I breathe in and I breathe out. And I'm going to blow out a candle, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes I go, hold, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and let all of your energy go. I mean, let all of the tension go out. Okay. So I do breathing exercises. Something that's good when you're in a place that's got a lot of people in close quarters and you don't want to sing out loud and go, is I do. Or if you can't do that, because really most people can't do that unless they attach to their diaphragm. A lot of people can't do that just with their lips. They have to attach to their diaphragms. A lot of people have strong lips, I guess they can do that. But the idea is to get down here to your diaphragm. And it's a quiet way. You can do that in the shower, right? Shower with steam. Oh my God. right? That and those trills. That gets me. I'm someone who has to work on the memory part of it. So I tend to, I might go, if I'm a big part, I might go through my entire script just because I'm scared or no, what's the idea? Superstitious about not doing it. So I go over it, and if there's one thing I had a bump on in the last scene, I'll go over that a couple times, and then I'll feel better about it because I know that I've done that. I also do physical exercises, not so much, but you should. So those are some of the things I do. And I also don't like a lot of people around. A lot of people like people to talk to them so they don't feel nervous, and that works for them. But it doesn't work for me. I like to pull myself off by myself and do my breathing stuff and just get into a zone, okay? And so I have to be bold enough to say to people who need to be chatty Cathys, all around me, to say, yeah, you know what, that's just not mine. I need to just let me be in this corner and be nice about it. But I need to be, and that's what works for me. Other people like to be right in it so that they're in it and they don't even think they go on stage, and it works for them. So
I was sure she was asking about how I get prepared to do Wicked every night, but I walk in and just sit down and start to play.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Lily, for that question.
Thank you.
All right. So the next question, okay, this one can apply to both of you, so we don't want you to be left out there, David. So let's see where Miss Anna is. There she is. All right, Anna, you remuted yourself. I have the power. There you go.
I'm so sorry.
Anna. We love it. Hi, sweet one.
My question for you is, I'm changing my question to bit Ian. I hope that's okay.
Oh.
My question is, what was your most challenging role or job that you've had, and what have you done to push through that challenge?
Me?
Go ahead.
Okay. The most challenging job that I had, you will never have seen, and you probably never will see. But it was one of my most favorite moments. It was about 5 years ago, 6, I don't know. I did a show about Alzheimer's, and I played an early Alzheimer's. It's a musical, believe it or not, a musical about Alzheimer's, early onset Alzheimer's. And it was written by a young composer and a young lyricist. And I thought, oh, we did a reading up at the Berkshires, and we did it, lots of intricate tonal things, lots of ridiculous words that didn't mean anything because I was an Alzheimer's patient who was just kind of saying lots of stuff, but it had to kind of be right. It was the most challenging. What did I do? I rehearsed so much. I put my earphones on, and I had a great time doing it. But I would always play the music. I would sing it as I was going down the street, because now people with cell phones always, it used to be you'd look crazy if you were walking down the street, but now you don't look crazy walking down the street because everyone's going, oh, yeah. So I would just do my lines because it was a two-hander, so it was just two people. We made a recording. It's called The Memory Show, and we were hoping that a lot of regional theaters, it would be a good thing for regional theaters, but most people do musicals in regional theaters that are fun, like Hello, Dolly, and those are the things that, collect money. You're not going to get a lot of people who want to come in and watch someone dissolve into Alzheimer's. But that was my most challenging, and it was my most satisfying because it came late in my life, and it was at a time when I hadn't done a lot of musicals. So it reassured me that, wow, I was able and ready to do it if I put in the work.
She was great in it too, really great.
I was. I'm sorry. I really was. You know, I said I wasn't that good in the one I got nominated for a Tony. So that one I should have gotten nominated for a Tony.
Awesome. Thank you.
Very welcome, Anna.
Oh, do you want me to answer that question too?
Yeah.
Oh, gee.
Michael John.
Yeah, I was going to say, I did a show several years, it was actually just a couple of years before Wicked started, called Marie Christine. It was at Lincoln Center. Michael John LaChiusa was the composer, and Audra McDonald was the star, and I was the musical director. And it was a very, very, very intense, difficult show. A lot of very complicated music, a big cast.
Complicated plot.
Complicated plot.
Medea is about a mother who kills her children.
It's based
to
on a Greek myth.
get back at her husband.
Yeah,
basically.
it's based on a Greek myth. It was a beautiful show, and I had done years of workshops and readings, and I had
and
been,
not getting paid.
not getting paid. When it came to doing it on Broadway, and it was a Lincoln Center theater that's considered on Broadway, there was just a lot of pressure and a lot of intense rehearsal, and you know, I had a very good relationship with the composer, but he was very nervous, and so my job was dealing with. I mean, Audra was a dream, so it wasn't her, but it was dealing with a big cast, a nervous composer, a big orchestra, a brilliant orchestrator, Jonathan Tunick, who did all of Sondheim shows. It went really well. It only lasted a couple of months.
It was beautiful.
But
well, once again, do you want to see a mother kill her children? Just like, do you want to see somebody dissolve into
right.
Alzheimer's?
It
when
was
it's
a very
musical?
intense show, but amazing. And so I think that was the most challenging. And dealing with it was just working really hard on it every day. And again, when you're the musical director of a new show or the director, and you're dealing with living writers, composers, it's you're also dealing with just sort of like being a support group for it. I mean, I'm a shrink as well as a musician. And the only thing the joke I said to the musical contractor who hires all the musicians for the show is that the next show I do, I want it to be all in 3/4 time with a dead composer. And actually, ironically, the next show I did was a revival of Bells Are Ringing, an old Julie Stein Hamden and Green musical. It's mostly in 3/4 with a dead composer. So
He got his wish.
I got my wish.
That's awesome. Thank you so much.
All right, thanks Anna for that question. That was excellent. Our next question actually deals a little bit with the dancing aspect of things. This comes from...
David will answer that.
Yeah.
All right, Max.
Hi, I actually saw Wicked in England, and it was a great show. But my question is, what style of dance is in most demand on Broadway?
Gosh, you know, I would say, you know, it so depends on the show. I mean, I watched a couple of dance calls for Wicked. I don't usually go to auditions, but I do. And if you saw Wicked, the style of dance is very unusual and very, very idiosyncratic to that show. And from what I can tell from dancers is that, again, as Catherine said with acting and singing, you got to be kind of prepared for anything because, you know, the shows that are on, I mean, look at the shows that are on. Hamilton,
Which is more kind of a hip hop
more
kind of
hip
thing.
hop, Wicked.
Which is kind of just its own little category of
Yeah.
musical theater.
And then there are revivals, so that you have to be prepared to tap and to do ballet. And, you know, I mean, we're totally the wrong people to ask about dance.
Except, not really, because my son is a dancer
Yeah.
and his girlfriend is a dancer.
Yeah.
Okay, and the thing that, I mean, he's doing something else now. He's not like a professional dancer, but he took a lot of dance. And at one point he said, you can't, everyone says, as boring as ballet might seem to you, you know, ballet is something that people usually who are dancers can tell. Even if you're doing, well, hip hop, I don't know, if you're an amazing street dancer, then that's something else. But if you're doing something, usually people can tell if you've had ballet training. And that was my son's least favorite, but he actually decided he would take ballet because that's what he heard. And it does, it forms a certain, I guess, discipline or something that people can tell. Like I said, I'm not sure if it's in street dancing or hip hop, but get a base, just try ballet and just, whether you like it or not, just try to get the discipline of it because it does a lot of things for your core, and that's what I've heard. I'm not a dancer. I should have been, but I wasn't. Okay?
Thank you.
But it's really,
You're very welcome.
you know, the name of our company was Broadway Triple Threat. And the truth is, these days, I think Catherine alluded to this before, it used to be that if you were a strong singer, that was your thing.
and you could act.
And you could act.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
You were, you know.
But now, if you are a decent dancer and can sing well, that's still a big commodity these days.
Big plus.
A big plus. There are a lot of people at Wicked who audition for Wicked, and if you can find someone who's really a strong singer who can dance the show, that's really not that easy to find these days. I mean, it still isn't. So they, you know, it's important to really work on both. And even if you feel like, you know, dancing is never going to be a thing, you're never going to call yourself a dancer, but it's,
At least move well and
Yeah.
get rid of the stigma of not knowing how to dance.
yeah, because
Okay.
You never know what's going to come up and what someone's going to look for. And we've had people, even at Wicked, who aren't the strongest. There are certain tracks at Wicked where you're not in every number, and you just have to, you know, I'm not going to say fake it, but you have to be able to sort of move well enough. But if you're a really strong singer, sometimes that wins. You know, auditions for shows are a little bit of not a battle, but a little bit of collaboration between the dance department and the music department.
Yeah, they do. It's very political.
And you negotiate.
Who gets who first,
Yeah.
you know?
And so,
I want the better dancer, I want the better singer, I want the better actor.
yeah, and sometimes we'll give you one if you'll give us one, you know, kind of thing. So you never know. You never know. You might walk in and be just what one of those departments is looking for, and they'll make do with the part that you don't feel like is your strongest part. So you never know.
Mhm. All right. Well, thank you so much for that question, Max. And thank you for that wonderful answer. We have one more question before we finish things up. This one is from Lily Smallwood.
Lily!
Do you know Lily?
We know Lily.
Mom. Sorry, she couldn't figure out how to unmute.
When they come, when they talk, or they may, you
Do
know.
they? I just keep doing this.
Yeah. Oh, there she is.
Hi, Lily.
Hi.
Hi.
So my question for you guys is, what was the best experience that you've had? Like, what is the best part of your job, I suppose?
The Best
best
part of our job in at the moment?
Well, not necessarily at the moment, like just the best part of your career, or what was one of the greatest moments of your career?
Do you have a question? Do you have an answer?
You know, it's hard to pick. For me, I started out as a composer, and so the most satisfying moments when I've heard some of my songs, sometimes sung by this person, or seen something of mine that I wrote, and it ends up being very close to what I imagined. That's a very exciting moment, because I mean, why I love composing for theater as opposed to when I was composing in the classical world is that it's always a collaboration. So that's always the fun, the give and take, and sometimes the best part is just writing the song, you know, and coming up with an idea, coming up with a melody I love, and it fits the words just right. And, you know, that part, that's one part of my life. The other part is the musical directing part and the conducting part. And honestly, at Wicked, since I've been doing it for so long, the most fun part of it is the people. Is, you know, getting to the theater. You know, I've been seeing these people most nights for the last 16 years of my life. I realized one day recently that I've been doing that show for half of my son Henry's life. He's 26, which is just kind of wacky. And so
But it pays the rent.
It pays the rent. I miss those people, but the most fun part of doing that show at this point is going in and just saying hi and reviewing the day and talking to them and joking around, and then we could do this thing that's not that hard to do at this point, and they pay us. So for me, those two things are the things that are the most satisfying. Not that I don't like doing the show, but it's the people more than anything else.
I like originating things, which doesn't usually happen. When I did Baby, I originated the role. I did it as a reading, which, you know, a lot of those things don't come to fruition. But I do like creating them, which is why I love the audition process. Really working on it, that's what I enjoy. I really don't enjoy the previews and the opening nights. I just get so nervous. That's just me. But I'm usually good. It's not like I, you know, screw up, but I kind of like, I want to get through that so that I can settle into the run. And if it's I don't want it to run for 15 years necessarily, but if it can run for 5 months, I'm really happy, because I usually think that if it's a big enough part, I can find different things. And that for me is fun without the fear, which for me is really good. Baby, I originated the role. Originally, she was supposed to be a gymnast, which, you know, I'm 5'9". Usually gymnasts are not 5'9". So, you know, I was reading it and I thought, I was talking to the composers, Richard Maltby and David Shire, and we were talking about it. And I said, well, you know, kind of jokingly, I said, she could be a basketball coach. She didn't have to be a gymnastics coach. And all of a sudden she was a basketball coach, and I got the part. So it's just kind of I like that. I love doing readings. I love cold readings, because I can try things and be off the wall and it doesn't matter. Yeah, so that's...
And if you go online and look up Catherine in Baby, you'll see the Tony performance, her basketball moves, because that was the song where she had to do a couple of moves that she learned on in a playground somewhere.
Yeah, downtown, a playground downtown in Manhattan.
Yeah.
Street ball.
Yeah.
I didn't look too street. I'm not really much of an athlete, but I was just tall.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Lily, thank you so much for that question. And there she is again. Thank you, Lily, for that.
Thank you.
And so that gets us to the end of our interview. But before we finish up, I would like to plug your program one last time, especially since it's online and you're donating to a wonderful, wonderful cause. So tell us the information about that one more time before we finish up.
Okay. If you go to the site BTT,
Broadway Triple Threat.
right, but it's just BTT Coach, COACH.com. BTTcoach.com. And you can sign up for lessons. There's a whole schedule there, and it's very easy. And we're here until Broadway starts again. We're here doing it.
Oh, we have a good time.
And we have a good time. And, you know, people have either brought us, well, they've brought us songs that they are working on or monologues that they're working on. We also can suggest, so after we hear them once, we can suggest songs and we send them stuff and songs and monologues. And we have a vast library because we've been teaching so long. So we try to find songs that are specifically catered to each individual person. And we also try to find songs that not everybody is doing, but songs that are maybe a little more obscure or maybe a little more, individual. So we're happy to help. So, you know, get in touch.
We'd love to see you.
Yeah.
Are you really doing Into the Woods? No. Yes.
It's slightly delayed is the only difference for us. We are moving it to the fall. But we're still doing a show. We're doing a show live on Facebook through Zoom called Together in Song. So it'll feature some of Into the Woods and it'll feature some other stuff as well, which is really fun.
You going to send us the information so that we can watch it?
Absolutely. Yeah, we'd love for you to tune in. That would be excellent.
Yeah, and we will put together in an email to you some of the links, well, the links to our site and also the links to some of those things that we mentioned, Broadway World, and Playbill, and some of that stuff that that everybody can, you know, get more information about New York and Broadway and auditioning and all that kind of stuff.
Excellent. And thank you guys so much, Catherine and David, for joining us and sharing your information. And I really do hope that when this is all over, the Graham Academy and Broadway Triple Threat will get to connect somewhere, whether it's Newfoundland or New York or both. It would be wonderful to connect with you folks.
We'd like both, actually.
Yeah, we'd like
if we have to vote, we go both.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, I think our team can work on that. I'm pretty confident that they will. So thank you so much. And for those watching, we will be back next week at the Stage Door with some more exciting people to share their career and their life with you guys. So thanks for tuning in and see you folks. And thank you so much again, Catherine and David, for your time.
Thanks
Very
again.
welcome.
It's been great.
All right, see everybody.
Bye.
Love you.